choice for your hot rod, and if we throw a whole bunch of good speed parts at it, what kind of power will it make?
I find that when I'm done working on it, I'm so under stress. I'm just totally chilled out. I'm like, wow.
There's an engine that GM built that almost nobody talks about. An engine so massive, it made the 454 look like small block material. So torquey, it could move a mountain before breakfast. And so obscure that even hardcore GM guys have to squint at the specs and say, wait, what? This is the story of GM's 637 cubic inch V8, the largest gasoline V8 the company ever built, and the shocking truth about how GMC covered it up, why it never saw the inside of a Chevelle or a Corvette, and how an engine this big, this powerful, and this American just got erased from memory. Let's roll the clock back to the late 1960s. America was in love with horsepower. Muscle cars were at their peak. The roads were flooded with 396 Chevelles, 427 Corvettes, and 440 Roadrunners. The average gas station was like a candy store for torque junkies.
I don't know. What are you doing, GMC? What are you guys building at?
GM? They were on top. Chevy's big blocks were the standard. The 454 LS6 and the Chevelle SS was advertised at 450 horsepower. But insiders say it was making closer to 500 in reality. It was the peak of Detroit insanity, and horsepower was the drug of choice. But in the shadows, something else was happening. While GM's flashy cars were lighting up quarter-mile times, another division, far from the limelight, was dealing with a different kind of problem: torque. Not the kind you brag about on a spec sheet, the kind that moves freight, tows trailers, drives the economy. See, GM wasn't just making muscle cars, they were also building the trucks that moved America. Box trucks, dump trucks, school buses, fire engines. And these vehicles? They needed serious low-end power.
It's not the first time that GM's had issues with some of their V8 engines, and it's also not the first time that
Back then, diesel engines hadn't taken over yet. They were noisy, temperamental, and expensive. Gasoline engines still ruled the fleet world. But the existing tall-deck big blocks like the 366 and 427 just weren't cutting it anymore. They had torque, sure, but not enough. Not for the growing weight of commercial loads. So GM engineers did what any gearhead would do when they hit a wall. They went bigger, way bigger. In 1971, GM's heavy-duty division got the green light to go wild. They used the same tall-deck big block architecture they already had, but they bored the cylinders out to extreme limits. The result? 637 cubic inches. Let that sink in. That's 10.4 liters of American iron.
It's pretty amazing. It's not really a truck. It's more like
a displacement so absurd that no production GM car, before or since, has ever come close. This thing was a brute. Designed under the Mark V big block platform, the 637 was never meant for speed. It was built for grunt. Let's talk about specs. Fully dressed, the 637 weighed over 700 pounds. It had a 4.6-inch bore and a 4.25-inch stroke. It ran a low compression ratio, usually around 7 to 9 to 1, because it was designed for regular gas, and lots of it. At just 2,000 RPM, it made over 500 foot-pounds of torque.
Truck sports car. If you think of it as a sports car, we can carry a ton of stuff in the back.
This wasn't a rev-happy race engine. It was a tractor disguised as a V8. You didn't drive it, you pointed it, and it did the rest. Now, here's where things get weird. You think GM would have been proud of this monster. Maybe throw it in a limited-run truck or a drag strip special. Market it to gearheads. Put it in a brochure next to the LS6 and say, and if that's not enough. But they didn't. Instead, they buried it. The 637 was only available in GMC commercial trucks. Think heavy-duty CK 6500s, school buses, fire trucks, and other fleet-spec monsters. It was a fleet engine, not a muscle car engine. not even a performance truck engine. And because of that, almost nobody knew it existed. But here's the kicker. GMC lied. When these trucks rolled off the lot, they didn't wear a 637 badge. They wore something much bolder.
GM vehicles, GMC, Chevy, those major brands.
V8 700. Yep, GMC slapped a 700 emblem on these trucks. Not 637, not even 650, 700. Now, to the average guy on the street, that sounds like a 700 cubic inch engine, or maybe 700 horsepower, or maybe a diesel. And that's what most people assumed, that the V8 700 badge meant diesel strength, that this was some unstoppable commercial-grade oil burner, but it wasn't. The 700 was marketing spin, an inflated number slapped on the badge to make the engine sound tougher than it was. Nothing in this engine measured 700 anything. Not cubic inches, not torque, not even its weight in kilos. It was a branding decision, a bold one and a misleading one.
The goal was to increase power and torque, to provide.
But why hide it? Why didn't GM at least offer a crate version to hot rodders or heavy-duty pickup owners? The answer is more than timing, gas prices, or emissions. The deeper truth is, GM chose profits over performance. Think about it. Here was a monster of an engine, 10 liters of displacement, torque numbers that dwarfed anything in its class, a platform that could have been adapted to multiple trucks, SUVs, and even limited run performance vehicles. And yet, GM didn't market it. They didn't celebrate it. They didn't even give it a real name. Instead, the 637 was tucked away in fleet-spec GMC trucks, hidden behind a V8 700 badge, a number that was pure marketing spin. No brochures, no enthusiast kits, no crate motors for hot rodders, just a whisper of an engine and heavy-duty manuals, quietly doing its work without fanfare. Why? Because GM was already thinking ahead.
The characteristics were very favorable. It pumps air well, did a good job generally.
By the mid-1970s, the company was betting on diesel engines. Diesels were becoming the future of medium and heavy-duty trucks, more fuel efficient, marketed as high-tech, and most importantly, highly profitable. The 637, as incredible as it was, posed a threat. If customers realized a gas engine could deliver similar torque and reliability at a lower cost, it could eat into diesel sales. That wasn't something the executives wanted. They didn't want to promote an engine that might make people question their long-term investments. They didn't want the 637 out there, proving that gas engines could compete or even outperform the diesels GM was selling.
Again, was a very experimental engine, and they liked the results of that so much.
So, the decision was made. Bury the beast. Let it exist quietly in fleet vehicles where no one would notice. Don't offer it to performance-minded consumers. Don't give it a platform to shine. And don't ever let it threaten GM's profit projections. The 637 V8 became a casualty of corporate strategy. A powerful engine stifled not by engineering limitations, but by boardroom priorities. It's ironic, isn't it? GM engineers created a masterpiece, an engine that could move mountains, tow massive loads, and scream American V8 in a way few other engines ever could. And yet, the suits decided it was better to hide it than to let it disrupt their plans. They prioritized margins over glory, spreadsheets over legacies. Enthusiasts would remember the 426 Hemi, the 454 LS6, and the Boss 429. But the 637, it was left to fade into obscurity. A footnote in a parts manual, a ghost engine that could have changed the game if GM had dared to market it honestly.
That's no pocket change. That's we believe in this engine money. And what are we getting for it? Well,
The 637 V8 is more than just a forgotten engine. It's a symbol of what happens when profit trumps performance. A literal monster of torque and size hidden away because it didn't align with the company's financial strategy. It wasn't too big to succeed. It wasn't too impractical. It was simply too honest, too effective. And for that, GM chose to keep it in the shadows, letting other companies and other engines claim the spotlight. Today, very few survive. They were never collectible, never desirable. Most were worked to death in fleet service and scrapped. But if you can find one, if you know what to look for, you've got yourself a true unicorn.
Doing that on the V8 that was going to be required to be competitive.
And some gearheads have done just that. They've taken 637s from junk school buses, stroked them, built them, cammed them, and dropped them into classic GM trucks. The result? Pure American violence. The legacy of the 637 isn't in a museum. It isn't in hot rod magazines. It isn't on Forza or Gran Turismo. Its legacy is hidden, buried in old parts catalogs, fleet manuals, and half-remembered stories from diesel mechanics who used to wrench on fire trucks in the 80s. GM didn't lie about the engine itself. They built exactly what they said they would. But GMC lied about what it was. They sold it under a badge it didn't earn, marketed it as something bigger, and then let it fade into obscurity. And that's the most shocking part of all.
The best cylinder combination, I believe it was a Nissan.
We remember the 426 Hemi, the 427 L88, the 454 LS6. But GM's biggest V8? The literal king of displacement? Forgotten. No collector editions, no drag legends, just torque numbers on a spec sheet that most people never saw. But not anymore, because now you know the truth about the 637 V8, about the badge it never earned, and about the engine that could have been a legend if GM had just given it the chance. This wasn't just another big block. This was the biggest, the forgotten giant of General Motors, the 637. For more stories like these, subscribe to our channel. Let us know your thoughts on the turbine engine in the comments below. See you soon.